I trudged up the long driveway, jumping over puddles of muddy rainwater and wondering what Jackie was doing right that very minute. Probably smoking cigarettes with some boy in the parking lot of the Piggly Wiggly across from the high school. Everybody thinks my sister is an angel straight down from heaven, but I know better. When Gus and Bertha's house finally came into view, I stopped. I'd been there for 4 days already, but I still couldn't get over how that house hung off the side of the mountain like it did. The house of the front sat smack on the ground with flowering shrubs nestled right up against it, but the back was on stilts stuck into the steep mountainside. On top of the stilts was a tiny porch with 2 rocking chairs and window boxes full of flowers perched on the railing. On my first night in Colby, Gus had dragged a kitchen chair out there for me after supper. Bertha had asked about a million questions like what was my favorite subject in school and did I have a lucky number? Did I want to go swimming at the Y sometime and did I like boiled peanuts? But I just mumbled and shrugged till she finally stopped. I was too mad to talk. What was I doing there on that porch with these people I didn't even know? I felt like I'd been tossed out on the side of the road like a sack of unwanted kittens. So the 3 of us sat in silence, watching the sun sink behind the mountain and the lightning bugs twinkle off and on among the pine trees. I'd spent the next 3 days trying to convince Gus and Bertha that it was dumb for me to go to school since it was almost summer. But the next thing I knew, I was sitting on that bus full of hillbilly kids on my way to school. "Hey there," Bertha called from the front door as I made my way across the yard. A fat orange cat darted out from behind the garden shed and trotted along beside me. Gus and Bertha had a whole passel of cats sleeping under the porch, sunning on the windowsill, swatting bees out in the garden. I went inside and dropped my backpack on Gus's tatted easy chair. The smell of warm cinnamon drifted through the kitchen door. "I made coffee cake," Bertha said. I wondered why they call it coffee cake, not a drop of coffee in it. She held the door open for the cat to come in. "Oh, I know. I bet 'cause you're supposed to drink coffee when you eat it. You think? Well, anyways, who cares, right?" It had been clear to me from day one that Bertha was a talker, not like her sister, my mama, who went for days without saying a word. I had been surprised when I saw how much they looked alike, though. Same mousy brown hair, same long, thin fingers, even the same crinkly lines along the lines of their mouths. I sat at the kitchen table and watched Bertha cut a thick slice of coffee cake and put it on a paper towel in front of me. Then she pulled her chair close to mine and said, "Tell me every little thing about your first day. Your teacher, the other kids, what your classroom looks like, what you had for lunch, what you did at recess, every little thing." "Some girl ate a squirrel sandwich," I said. Bertha's eyebrows shot up. "A squirrel sandwich? Are you sure?" I licked my finger and pressed it on a paper towel to get coffee cake crumbs. I nodded, but I didn't look at her when I said, "I'm sure." A small gray cat sat on the kitchen counter grooming himself. I wondered if that was the one Howard had given them. Bertha picked up and kissed the top of his head. "Charlie don't want cat hair in her coffee cake, Walter." Then she gently put him down on the linoleum floor. His tail twitched as he watched a line of tiny ants marching from under the sink to a dark spot of some sticky by the stove. "And there's an up-down boy in my class." Bertha cocked her head. "What in the name of sweet Bessie McGee is an up-down boy?" She snapped a brown leaf off of a plant on the windowsill and tucked it into her pocket. "This boy named Howard who walks up and down like this." I walked like Howard around the kitchen table. "Howard Odom," Bertha said. "Bless his heart. Good as gold that boy is. Don't bat an eye when kids poke fun at him, calling him names like Pogo." She shook her head. "I swear, kids can be so mean sometimes." "Pogo?" "Yeah, you know, like pogo stick." "He ought to punch their lights out," I said. "That's what I'd do." Bertha widened her eyes at me and then shook her head. "Not that boy. He wouldn't hurt a fly. All them Odoms are like that. Good-hearted, kind of wild sometimes. Those brothers of his. But good-hearted." She brushed combs off the table and tossed them into the sink. "Shoot, just last week, 3 of those boys were over there helping Gus replace them boards on the porch that got eat up with termites, and they wouldn't take 1 penny. We sent them home with a burlap bag full of turnips, and they were happy as clams." Turnips? Any kids who were happy about a bag of turnips must be weird, if you asked me. Bertha sat at the table beside me again. "So what else?" She said, "Tell me something about your school." I shrugged. I wasn't going to tell her about that getting to know you paper dropped onto Miss Willoughby's desk like a hot potato, or about Howard being my backpack buddy. So I just said nothing. "Nothing? Nope." Bertha slapped her hand on the kitchen table. "I almost forgot. she said. I got you something. She motioned for me to follow her down to the hall, the tiny spare room where I'd been sleeping. Ta-da! She flung her arm out and grinned. I followed her gaze to the narrow bed in the corner. Propped up against the wall were 2 pillows and pink pillowcases with Cinderella on them. I realized this morning that this room don't look one bit like a little girl's room, Bertha said. So I went down to Big Lots and got those pillowcases. I was going to get the matching bedspread, but it was a double and not a twin. I might go back and get this fluffy pink rug they have if I can get Gus to help me move that bureau. And I know I need to get my canning jars out of here, and that old TV don't even work anymore, but she rambled on, and I didn't even listen. Cinderella pillowcases? She must think I'm 5 instead of almost 11. She sure didn't know much about kids. That afternoon, Jackie called from Raleigh. She told me how Carol Lee's cousin came to visit and gave her a cashmere sweater she didn't want anymore. And Carol Lee's daddy was teaching her how to drive since Scrappy never would. She said she was thinking about putting blue streaks in her hair and that some boy named Arlo was taking her to a NASCAR race down in Charlotte. She was so busy telling me about her happy life that she didn't even ask what it was like living in Colby with hillbilly kids who eat squirrel. After we hung up, I went back to my room and laid on the Cinderella pillows and felt sorry for myself. How could Jackie be so happy? It seemed like she didn't care one little bit about me anymore. I bet Scrappy didn't care about me anymore either. I bet he was so busy playing basketball behind the tall fence at the county jail that he didn't even think about me up here on his mountain in a house full of cats with these people I don't even know. And I knew for sure my mama wasn't thinking about me as she shuffled around the house in her bathrobe, all red-eyed and stoop-shouldered. I was definitely going to have to go out on that porch tonight and wait for the first star to come out so I could make my wish again. Maybe 2 in one day could do the trick.